Carmentary, good afternoon. Neil here with you, driving down from the mountain, and I thought I would do a quick Carmentary as we head home. I want to talk about the fish series from Gentem Stick. I just started riding my big fish again this year because the snow is now deep enough to warrant the big fish. So let's do a quick review of the line. And yesterday I rode with my friend Tak, and he was riding the midfish. And I'd kind of forgotten that the midfish even existed. I don't know what year that was added to the line. I believe there are now 4 swallowtail fish boards in the Gentem Stick line. The shortest being the rocket fish, then you have the midfish, the big fish, and the super fish. So let's roughly go over each one and my thoughts on who they would be good for and what you can do with each board. So we'll start with the rocket fish. It's the shortest one in the line. Personally, unfortunately, I have never ridden it, so I cannot really speak from my personal experience. But from watching people who ride it, talking to them, kind of getting the vibe on it, basically, it's really wide. It has quite a bit of side cut. It's got the swallowtail, but it's a short board. So it seems to be super floaty from the width, but yet super maneuverable because it's quite short and has a good bit of side cut. So it really, you can make these quick tight turns. And it seems to be really designed with obviously deep powder riding, but like little gullies. Here in Japan, the way the mountains are, we get a lot of these really tight little gullies. So they're like, we call it sawa. Sawa is a gully in Japanese. And you can have really big ones, but they can go down to these like tiny little gullies. It's probably like a little river in the spring where the snow melts and you get this little runoff. And they're super fun, but they're tight. And that rocket fish that's what it's great at. It's getting in those little gullies. You're gonna get the float, but you're gonna be able to go whop, 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 back and forth from these banks, you know? You don't want it to like dig into the snow. You want it to float up onto that bank and then down and into the next one. So that is my image of the rocket fish. Now I've also seen people ride it in spring conditions with slushy snow and have a lot of fun as well. Again, similar situation where you're in these little slushy gullies, or maybe it's like little natural banks on the side of a course and you can really get surfy with it, kind of snapping off the lip, laybacks, floaters. Those kind of maneuvers seem to be really fun with the rocket fish. So that is my my image. Again, I haven't ridden it, which is unfortunate. I've never had the chance. There was never one to ride. I never really felt like I should buy it because I didn't feel like I would ride it a lot during the season. It feels a little too small for me and what I do in general. So that's why. Next, the midfish. So I don't know a whole lot about the specs on the midfish, but looking at my friend's board yesterday, it really kind of feels like it's just a scaled down version of the big fish, which is what I have ridden for a long, long time. The big fish, so I guess we can talk about them together. Because I believe it's just sort of, they just sort of scaled down the big fish because the big fish is really a powerful board. It's meant for people who have, you know, body weight, maybe height, size, wear a heavy backpack. You know, you want to have, it's not only floaty in the powder, but it's quite stiff, and because of the width and not having a lot of side cut, it has a more shallow kind of side cut. So I don't know what the word is. Basically, there's a lot of people, especially in Japan, where everybody is generally lighter, maybe a little shorter. They don't really have the body weight to manage and control a board that big. So I think they kind of scaled it down and created that midfish. So I think for a lot of people, that is going to be, you know, the choice. The midfish, I don't know, just looking at it, I was like, yeah, that's probably the board people are really going to want to pick and ride predominantly if you're in that weight category. Me, I presently, in my super fit winter condition here. I am now weighing so like 74 kilos, 185 centimeters in height, size 30 feet, so fairly big. I got my backpack on most of the time with all the wear and the gear. Obviously there's more weight, so for me I think the big fish fits. But for a lot of people, if you're like 60 kilos, it's gonna be a hefty lift to ride that board. So midfish, great choice. And what you're gonna get with the midfish and the big fish, it's like a, what's a good description here? It's a cruiser, you know. It's not a race car. It's a cruising car. It has that kind of, you know, Cadillac kind of feel. It's the width allows you to really lay it up on an edge, which can be fun, you know, once you get used to it. Now, a little asterisk here. I've had my big fish tuned up several times, and it just came back recently from Gaku in Higashikawa, who did an incredible job, and I could really feel the difference when I rode it. Going from like fall line flat bottom position into either a toe side or a heel side turn, if the board is tuned up really good and the edges have been, you know, like detuned where they need to be detuned and then sharp where they need to be sharp, it's a super smooth entry from that flat position into the turn, and it allows you to have the confidence to not slide out the tail to drop your speed, but to just stay on that rail and just like keep going, and then pull the board across the hill, across the course, rather than doing this like going up on edge, kind of feeling like, oh, it's gonna like, is it gonna hook? Is it not gonna hook? Oh, this is kind of feeling weird. Okay, I need to slide out my tail to cut off some speed, and then suddenly you're into like a generic, boring, you know, it's not a turn. That's not a turn. That's a de-acceleration maneuver. When you're sliding your board sideways, you're sending up spray, you're getting a little face shot, whatever, but you're not making a turn. You're de-accelerating down the mountain. So I think that's a key point, is if the board is working good, you are able to get into that turn and then pull the board on the edge, super smooth, total confidence, locked in, boom, coming across, and then laying it back down. The board goes to flat, not on the fall line, but now you're kind of flat, angling across the hill, and then from there you're pulling it around into your other edge. From regular foot going into the toe side, and again, boom, you're up on that edge. You're so locked in, it feels so smooth. There's no feeling of like, oh, I'm gonna catch an edge, my tail's gonna hook. Like, there's none of that, and you're just pulling across. I had that experience yesterday, I had it again today. It's beautiful. When that happens, you know the board is tuned up to perfection, everything is working good, and you're riding the right board for the right conditions. Absolutely spectacular. So that's what you can get from the big fish. It's the word big, I think, is key. Big turns, big movements. It's not about like it's not what that board is made for. It's made to do those big arcs, those big turns. Now, another little asterisk on there. That's what the board is. Now that tail, as I talked about in a prior Carmentary when I talked about swallowtails compared to roundtails, that swallowtail on the big fish though is torsionally soft, and it can do amazing things. If you ride it up front, you're kind of riding centered or a little on your front foot, you're doing those carves like I just talked about. But if you're in a little situation where it's like a little bumpy run and you're surfing through it and you just want to like do those quick tail maneuvers, like boom, you know, little slash here, a little slash there, you need to be quick. That's when you need to be a little more on the tail and using that tail, slapping it around, you know. And the big fish can totally do that too. I think it's real versatile in that manner. You're up front or you're in the back, like you're kind of using your weight and your balance, and the tail will release really easily and be like soft and flexy. Whereas under your foot and up towards the front, you've got a stiffer, wider board that really will support your weight in the deep powder. Is that making sense so far? Okay, let's move on to our final board, the big fish. Excuse me, the super fish. The super fish. Now again, unfortunately, I have not ridden the super fish in all these years. You know, it's like, it's so close. Gentem Stick showroom is right there, man. I could just go out there and rent it and ride it. But you know what? Life is hella busy. Hella busy, man. So I never have, but again, I've seen a lot of people ride it. I've talked to people, kind of know a bit about it. It's the biggest board in the fish line up there. It has quite a strong side cut when you look at it. So you got this big nose, but then you got this kind of waist that comes down, like this nice tight waist. So what that means is you've got the extra length, but because of that side cut, you're able to really do these kind of like, probably even like short turns. And I believe the flex is a little softer, just in general. Now, you can go on the website, you can look, or you can go touch it somewhere, and you know, boards change year to year depending on the materials in them, and you know, I might not have that exactly right, but my feeling from what I've seen and talked to people about Superfish, it's bigger, but softer and strong side cut, so it's more reactionary. It's like it feels like a shorter board, but you've still got that length to float in the powder and do these kind of real surfing maneuvers. I would think it's more like a, I don't know what, I'm not a real big surfer. It seems like it would be like a longer board that maybe you would ride in like smaller surf, maybe like a single fin or something, like a little more old school kind of vibe. That, if I was gonna translate it roughly to surfing, that's what I would imagine it as. Like that kind of fun board you take out. You're not trying to be super aggressive. You're not riding some crazy Alaskan face, but you just want to like have fun and surf, really flow and surf. That is what I have seen people do and use the Superfish for. So the more aggressive ride, I believe, is the Big Fish. The more cruisy fun ride for the larger rider maybe is the Superfish. The Midfish is basically the Big Fish for a lighter or smaller rider. And the Rocket Fish could be for anyone. I think, you know, I think I could totally ride that board, but I think it would be fun in the right conditions. If it got too deep or too flat, or my backpack was too heavy, I think the Rocket Fish, even though with that width, would not perform, or at super high speeds on a big slope, might not be what you want to ride. So that is my general overview of the fish series, Gentem Stick. Beautiful boards, those swallowtails. One other note I could add is the Cloudliner. It's not in the fish series because it's not called a fish. I don't know why. It's called the Cloudliner. I have one. Incredible board. I don't know if it's longer than the Superfish or not. Maybe, I think it's about the same length, but not as much side cut. It's more like they took the Big Fish and they said, man, you know, there's some guys out there who are just, they weigh like 180 kilos and they're just like, they need an even bigger board. Let's just make them a Cloudliner. And it's quite stiff. The one I have is, it's quite a stiff board. It's big, wide, stiff. For me personally, it's worked great in two scenarios. I usually take it to Tomamu for the catboarding experience, because we get to go up on the high mountains there where there's less trees. And I know I'm not going to be doing these like tight little turns in trees, and you can really let it rip, get some speed. And with that stiffness and that size, like I've had a couple turns that I will never forget. Like, there's those turns. You get a couple turns and you're like, wow, I never had a turn like that. I've had a couple turns like that on that board. It also works great in kind of flat situations where maybe you have like a long traverse, or you have to get over this flat part to get to something, and you're with a group of people and they're like, hey, you got the biggest board, you go first. And that's when the Cloudliner really shines, because it just goes like pretty amazing. I think it's that extra stiffness in the size there that allows it to just sort of stay on top. It's like there's, if your board's soft and it flexes at all, you're gonna create some resistance, you know. It's got just enough that it gives you a little float on top, but yet doesn't sink it. So that's an incredible board, but you don't want to step to it if you're not ready for it. In the beginning, I struggled with it for a year or two, to be honest with you, and it didn't get much use. I got it tuned up, it was better, and now I got it tuned up again by Gaku, who I really trust because he knows what he's doing. And I'm really looking forward to bringing it out and having another session on the Cloudliner this year. So I will do another episode, maybe with some riding, talk about the Cloudliner. But that's it. Those are the swallowtail boards that I wanted to talk about, and I just pulled up back home. So yeah, another 16-minute rant. Hope you enjoyed that, and I will talk to you again soon. Drive safe, everybody.